the Facebook group because Nadia's a Canuck. All right, here we go.
All right.
Your earbuds.
Hey everybody, what's happening? What's going on? What are you doing? What hand are you doing it with? And what are you going to do with it when you're done doing it? Hey, Dan Shinder here on Drum Talk TV Live with Dr. Nadia Azar right there. Live from the University of Windsor in Canada, just north of the border, but still considered the Great White North. Nadia, how are you?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Great, thanks. She's in her office at the University of Windsor, and I'm in the Drum Talk TV office in Globe, Arizona. A tiny speck on the map you've probably never seen unless you live here. It's 100 miles east of Phoenix. If you ever come out this way, hit me up. We'll get together. I'll put you on the show, and we'll talk drumming. Maybe you can drink a beer. So Nadia, wow, there's so much to cover. This is the first time we've had Nadia on the show since she spent 4 days putting up with my BS at the NAMM show. And all the wonderful artists that you interviewed, gosh, from James Gadsden to Vinny Appice, Carmine Appice, Jason Hartless. I mean, it goes on and on. I think you did about 35 or 40 interviews, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I mean, if you count all the walkabout stuff that I did, it was probably close to that. But in the booth and around the booth, it was, I think, somewhere around 25 or 30.
Yeah, and asking people, for those who don't know, about drumming injuries, and if you've ever had a drumming injury, and as it says in the post, it does not count as an injury if you're counting being waterboarded by a lead singer's ego. That doesn't count. We're talking about injuries from actual drumming, so it could be neck and shoulder problems. It could, I wonder if TMJ counts. It could be carpal tunnel, tendonitis, problems with your hips, your knees, your ankles, bursitis, your elbows, anything like that. What did I leave out, Nadia?
Back problems, knee problems, hip problems, muscle tension, tendonitis. I think you covered it.
Yeah, great. And a part of what we're doing today is you're going to kind of fill us in a little bit about maybe some commonalities of what you found from interviewing folks at the NAMM show, but also the big study that you did that many Drum Talk TV fans were a part of, and, got to turn that down, and also this new motion capture technology you're using for a new study. So why don't you start with the NAMM show and briefly give what the consensus was of a couple of the most popular ailments from drummers other than bandmate, girlfriend, or boyfriend trauma, or being waterboarded by lead singer's ego.
Yeah, okay. So I think probably the biggest, the most common thing that came out of it, well, first of all, almost everyone I spoke to had an injury. If I did 30 interviews, at least 27 people said, oh yeah, I've had something at some point. Which is a higher percentage than what my survey found, but still kind of rings true in the sense that it's very common.
It's interesting to me because we've talked about this, but I've never had a drumming-related injury that was from repetitive motion. You know, I've broken a knuckle on a rib or something, and that doesn't count.
Yeah,
and I find that odd because for 10 years I had severe sciatica, had a really bad back problem, and playing drums was one of only two things I could do that didn't hurt. I can't say what the other thing is because it's a family show. But I find it so interesting that I just happen to be that one of the odd people out that never really acquired something, and I'm not sure why. I don't know if maybe because I found a sweet spot in the ergonomics of my kit over the years or what. And I'm 56. I've been playing 49 years as of this month. And thankfully, I've gotten by so far.
Yeah. Well, in my survey, the percentage was 68% of the 831 drummers who gave me usable data, which is a big sample. So 68% said at some point in my musical career, I've had an injury. 25% had one at the time of filling it out. So at any given time, 25% of drummers have some kind of playing related repetitive strain type disorder that they're dealing with. Yeah.
And then I believe we talked about this in September when you were here in person in the studio. But does age and how long someone's been playing and how often they play and how fit they are or are not, are those major contributing factors or just kind of ancillary ones?
I wouldn't say, I shouldn't say they're major contributing factors, but they are definitely modifiers.
Okay.
I'm actually writing an article right now for a drumming magazine that'll hopefully be coming out in the next little while, but it has to do with the risk factors for, like, the three main risk factors for developing an ergonomic type injury: force, posture, and repetition. Those are kind of the big three. But then things like age play into it, your fitness level. If you're more fit, you're stronger, you can tolerate more force, you have more endurance, so you can handle a little more repetition. So these things can modify the effects of those big three risk factors for sure.
Awesome. And is that article for Pamela's magazine?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So for those of you watching, watch for this. It's a great new magazine, comes out quarterly, and this is from Pamela Serafine, Danny Seraphine's wife, Danny from the original drummer of Chicago, and the name of the magazine is 21st Century Drummer. Look it up on Facebook, look it up on, I think the website is 21st, the numbers, 21stcenturydrummer.com, and there's some great contributors, including Nadia. I happen to be a contributor. I'm not in the great contributor category, but I write in the business section of how to market and promote yourself. Well, thanks. Those are interesting findings.
That was good content.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Cool. So
going back to, I guess, what I heard from the drummers is what kind of came out of that is a lot of people talked about shoulder issues, which was a little bit different than what I found in my study, but there was the upper limb was the big thing for what drummers reported for mine. So I wasn't totally surprised to hear that. A lot of them talked about having tendinitis or torn rotator cuff or different things like that. A few of them talked about surgeries they've had to have. But one thing that came out repeatedly, which I had to have a bit of a laugh about, was they all talked about, or most of them talked about, when I was younger and I was playing and I had all my cymbals were way up here, I'm smashing stuff left and right and, really flamboyant kind of playing. And they said over the years, the kit got smaller and more compact and they're playing more efficient so that they weren't putting that kind of strain on their joints. Right. And that's, that's a natural progression. But so I guess the guiding principle there would be like, yeah, it might look cool, but you got to think about what you're doing to your body. And so if you haven't gone through that and earned those pearls of wisdom, we're kind of giving these to you now. Take your cymbals down, bring stuff in closer. If you use it a lot, it should be within arm's reach so that you're not stretching way up high. You don't really want to have much going on over your head if you can help it.
Absolutely. I'm thinking of my kit as you're mentioning that. Folks, if you've seen my almost daily vlog with the blue kit in the studio, that's about half my drum set. I love a huge kit with just lots of sounds and textures, and because of the kind of music I typically play is progressive rock and whatnot. However, on the next vlog, I'll have just the John Bonham setup because of a show that I'm doing this weekend that we're getting ready for. But my point is that I kind of did the same thing. I look at old pictures of myself like right there and right there. And I can't believe even how high my toms were on the mount off of the bass drum and high and tilted my snare was. And that I was 19, 20, 21 back then. And now everything's much more economized as far as distance, like you're saying. The blue setup I play with now is almost the exact same configuration as Phil Collins' set that he toured with Genesis in the latter 20, 15 years or whatever. So everything's pretty close and linear and in a row. And I was looking at some pictures of an earlier kit before we moved to Arizona. In Vegas, I had my entire kit set up, and even though I had at least twice as much stuff, it was still lowered and, very, very easy to play. Yeah. So it's interesting. I think that you should heed Nadia's words and find that sweet spot now so you're not one of that high percentage of people with current drummer injuries on her next survey.
Yeah, I mean, you want to make it easy on yourself, right? Like, you want to do this for the long haul, you've got to set up your kit in a way that's going to fit your own playing and your own body. Otherwise it's no different than at work, right? If you think about, if you have a desk job, you don't put your keyboard way up here and you don't put your monitor way up here and, stuff that you use all the time all the way over the side. You keep everything in close because that's your reach envelope. And so the stuff that you're using the most often needs to be close enough to you so that you're not getting into these awkward or extreme postures repeatedly. It's okay once in a while, have your gong behind you because you don't hit that, 20 times a second for 3 straight minutes or whatever it is,
Right.
You're only hitting that once or twice, so it's no big deal.
Yeah.
But you don't want, you wouldn't want your hi-hat back there.
Right.
That's an extreme example, but you don't want it even too far away from you either, because you want it close enough that you can reach it comfortably.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've always found it interesting, the amount of drummers who do not. I've asked this question for the whole 6 years and 4 months of Drum Talk TV. How often do you experiment with different setups of your kit? And it kind of surprises me that a lot of people just fall into, and I get it, they fall into a groove, find something comfortable, and that's what they stay with. But I think it's neat to sort of mix it up sometimes. It makes you play different. Sometimes it helps your creativity rather than playing the exact same setup, that you play every day. So that's interesting. And we will take some questions. Well, actually, I'll take the questions and Nadia will answer them. So, let us know if you have questions. Let us know if you have currently or have had a drumming-related injury, and we'll check those out in a moment. Feel free to tell us where you're watching from as well. And even if you're watching on the archive, go ahead and ask questions. We'll check it over the next couple of days or so and see what else has come. Cool. What else would you like to share before we get into the whole new motion capture technology you're using?
Let me think about this. I think in terms of the NAMM show interviews, that was probably, the other major theme that came out from almost everyone I talked to is when I asked them about what they do, or do they do anything off the kit to prepare their bodies to handle the demands of something as physically intense as playing the drums.
A lot of drummers drink beer for that.
Some do. Yeah. No, maybe they do, but almost, I don't think there was a single person who didn't say they did nothing. Almost everybody says, I walk or run a couple times a week. I do yoga and Pilates came up a lot.
Oh,
that
nice.
But a lot of people are in the gym. A lot of people are either lifting weights or doing cardio or both, or the yoga, to keep themselves in peak physical condition. And, all along I've been trying to make this argument that drummers are athletes, right? And it's very true. I mean, I've now been collecting data for the better part of the last year and a half to demonstrate this. There are others who have done the same thing, that professional drummers are performing at the physically at the level of elite athletes in terms of the heart rates that they're reaching, the energy they're expending. So you have professional athletes don't just get on the court and play.
Right.
They're in the gym, they're doing conditioning, they're practicing skills, they're doing drill, they're doing all kinds of stuff, and they're playing their shows, and they're doing their, full rehearsals with their band, that kind of thing. So, I just mixed my metaphors.
Yeah, I think we all got that though.
They're full practices. But so it's no different for a drummer.
Right.
If you're going to play at that level, you have to be training your body to handle it, which means you should be in the gym, you should be lifting weights, you should be doing exercise, you should be warming up, you should be cooling down, and you should also be practicing all your skills and drills in addition to your playing.
Right. Very much like
No
that.
different. So you should treat yourself as elite athletes. And you can tell that to your lead singers when they
That's funny.
throw that at their egos and see how they like it.
Absolutely. Let's see what we have so far in the way of any comments. Thanks everyone for joining. Sorry, there was a little bug in here. Let's see. Tony Novinska says, he saw you interview with Carmine, and he's a little over 3 months into a rotator cuff recovery, exactly as how he described his injury. I'm not sure if mine will be 4 months, but working out hard and trying hard. That's great. Hope you feel better soon.
Yeah. Keep up the exercises, keep up your physical therapy.
Yeah, absolutely. We got people watching from Ashish from Nepal. Thanks, Ashish. I don't think you sleep. No matter what time we go live on an interview or one of my vlogs, Ashish is there from Nepal. Thanks. Super user. Let's see. So Alex Lee says thumb muscle, the abductor, helps if I stretch it out before drumming and during breaks. Stretch, he says in all caps. And I am absolutely guilty as O.J. Simpson as far as, I like that. I've never stretched. And I'm not saying not to stretch, and I'm not saying it doesn't work, but I'm saying for whatever reason, I've never stretched, and I've never finished playing thinking, oh man, I should have stretched. I've just never, I don't know why. Maybe because I do other stuff, and I'm kind of limber. I'm kind of small. I'm 5'7.5" now, after all the kids and marriages and shaving my head. So I'm shorter, and I'm really light. I'm 150 pounds, really lean. So I don't know if that has anything to do with it, but I've never stretched and never got hurt from it.
I mean, if you're physically active off the kit, then that's certainly going to help. The other thing is that warm up doesn't have to be stretching. Warm up can, and in some cases maybe it shouldn't be static stretching, which is like the stretch and hold kind of thing. Mm-hmm. You generally want to do what's called a dynamic stretch or an active stretch, where you're essentially moving through the range of motion, so that you're warming up both around a joint, the muscles that flex it and extend it, agonist, antagonist. So you want, these are basically improving blood flow, getting the blood flow going to the muscles, warming up the tendons, ligaments, muscles, etc. And so it doesn't have to be stretching that's your warm up. That can be part of it, but the other part of it can be just things like playing rudiments or, active stretching, just range of motion exercises.
Like Tai Chi sounds a lot like what you described as well.
Yeah, that could as well, or some yoga stuff, or just movements, as opposed to just like static stretching. So
cool. Yeah. Let's see if we have any other questions. Hey, Daniel Dropkin says, hey, Doc. Hey, Dan.
Hello.
Thanks for tuning in. Cool. Some other people watching. Mark Michael St. John from drumline.net. Check out his stuff. Some other people that are watching but not commenting yet. Kevin Feeney from Creative Percussion. Awesome. So tell us about the motion capture technology that you're using, and what are you studying with that? You've got a drum kit. Well, you've got your drum kit there in the lab. Nadia is working on officially becoming a drummer. Your husband, Dory's drum kit.
Yes.
She'll have her own one day, I'm sure.
One day. I'm working on it.
Good.
So the motion capture technology that we're using is called the Exons system. And it's basically, they're called inertial measurement units. So they're within these little sensors that are about 1 inch by half an inch by about a half inch thick. They contain accelerometers, gyroscopes, and magnetometers. And between those three sensors, they basically tell you where that particular sensor is in space, in three-dimensional space. And so you put them, there's 17 sensors that go at different locations across the body, and then the computer system picks up the location of those sensors and can display essentially the movement of the person wearing it in real time on the computer screen in the form of like an avatar, essentially.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But from those sensors, what we're able to get, what the software gives us is the postures, the joint angles, limb positions and joint angles for essentially the entire body. So one of the things, this study kind of stemmed from my survey, which was the whole purpose of the survey was to figure out what do I need to do first. So what we are doing is looking at right now upper limb postures during drumming, because the upper limb came out as the most commonly injured body part, basically, from the survey. So we said, okay, we got to focus on that first. So I have an undergrad student, her name is Jessica, and she has been an absolute superstar working with me all year. So she's been the one kind of running that study. We've collected data on 7 drummers so far, and we basically instrument them with the motion capture system, sit them down at a drum set, and they play 4 songs for us, and we record their body positions while they play those 4 songs.
Do they get to pick the songs?
They get to pick one of the songs.
Okay.
We chose the other three to essentially try to minimize the inter-subject variability a little bit. You know,
Okay.
we've been playing the same songs. Everyone's going to play them a little bit differently, and we know that. But at least we're getting, you know, the same song being performed. So they play those three songs plus one of their choice. That usually we tell them to choose something that sort of reflects your usual genre that you play in. And a lot of people who come in have played original music, which is great.
That's cool.
Others have just picked something, you know, popular music or heavy metal music or whatever it is that they generally just like to play. But we're using that to look at, essentially document the range of motion that drummers' shoulders, elbows, and wrists go through while playing. It's a 4-piece kit.
So far, what have you discovered so far? Have you reviewed any of the data, compared any of the data? Do you see a wide range of results?
We have started reviewing the data, and one of the things that we're kind of seeing, and it's surprising but not really surprising once I start to think about it, is one of the things we noticed about the drummers, the 7 that we've looked at so far, is that they spend a ton of time with their wrists in extension, like almost the entire time they're playing, which extensions like this.
Interesting.
I would have thought it would have been more like this, but that just might be my ignorance on drumming technique. But yeah, they spend almost all their time like this, which when we saw that, and when I thought about, so the results of my survey again, one of the things that came out was carpal tunnel syndrome was one of the most commonly reported injuries. The other was tendinitis. Well, when you hold your wrist like this, you're narrowing the carpal tunnel. And so it's no surprise at all that carpal tunnel would come out to be that, and there's obviously the repetition too, all that friction of the tendons in that tiny little space, you're going to get some issues there at some point, most likely. So This was sort of now, you know, we originally had anecdotal evidence that carpal tunnel was an issue in drummers. Now I have research evidence for it. We now have some other evidence to back up and say, okay, well, here's maybe why, or part of the reason why carpal tunnel would be an issue in drummers. We know, I don't really have to document repetition in drummers. The whole point of drumming is repetition, so that's obvious as a risk factor. But posture is coming out, wrist posture is coming out to be what looks like is going to be a risk factor.
That's interesting.
The next step is, what do you do about it?
Yeah.
So
are you, by any chance, comparing the different grip people use, from traditional grip to French grip to German grip, or a mixed grip between French and German?
So we do ask that question. We ask them what grip they typically use, and most of them so far, I think everyone has said everyone's been match grip, no one's done traditional.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, and pretty much everyone says they use a mix. So it really, and even just in watching them, it really sort of changes, you know, depending on what they're hitting at any given time. Sometimes it makes more sense to be, I think it's just German, and sometimes it makes more sense French, and so they just kind of go back and forth, and we can actually pick that up with the sensors, with the data.
That's cool. Oh, that's really helpful, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder how many drummers find that their grip varies back and forth more than they think. Maybe they don't think it does at all, but they swing from German or French in one hand or both.
Mm-hmm.
I play a mix. I think most of the time I'm riding on my right cymbal, I'm playing French with my right hand, but I'm German with my right on the snare. Or left on the snare, yeah. So it's kind of one of each. Or traditional grip if I'm playing swing or big band or something.
Yeah.
And I don't even know why. I don't know why it even makes a difference. I just do because that's the traditional grip of that time and that music, so I switch.
Yeah.
But
which
for
makes
no
sense.
other reason. Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But that's, so with the sensors too, so that's flexion extension is just one of the directions it picks up. It also picks up what's called radial and ulnar deviation, which is essentially this motion, like waving below. And we're actually seeing so much range of motion in that direction that we're wondering if there's an issue with our sensors.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Because it's substantial. Like more than what I would think would be anatomically possible.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. So we're kind of looking into that. There might be some reasons for that, but yeah, it's pretty clear that it's substantial.
So if you discover that it is not the equipment, that's quite notable then.
It certainly is. Now that doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing. I kind of hesitate to say that because extreme postures are almost never good. But I guess what I'm like, so one of the things that kind of came out of this as like, oh, maybe for a next step, what we need to do is look at whether drummers have more wrist mobility, better, like more range of motion than non-drummers. Because it could be that after years and years of playing and you're going to have stretching of your tendons and ligaments, and so they probably have additional mobility anyway.
That makes sense.
Yeah, and so, but whether or not that's a good thing or a bad thing, I don't know.
Interesting. Let's see if we, and as this is being shared around and you're just joining us or missed the very beginning, if you have or have had any drumming-related injuries, please go ahead and comment. And if you'd like to ask Dr. Nadia Azar a question, Professor of Kinesiology at the University of Windsor in Canada, let us know. I'm going to be checking the comments as we go here. So let's see. Jim Stein, hi Jim, says, carpal tunnel issue has been my problem more with, more with hand drumming than with with sticks. Mm-hmm. So he's having carpal tunnel from hand drumming. That's very interesting.
Yep.
Have you talked to many people with that?
Not really, because my studies have focused on drum set players. Okay. So there might be some in there who also do hand percussion, but one of the inclusion criteria was that predominantly you play the drum set. Okay. That's your primary instrument. So yeah, I don't have a lot of perspective on that, but just from what I know from like ergonomics in the automotive industry and things like that, using your hands as a hammer essentially is a risk factor for hand and wrist injuries. So it translates. It's the same thing. You're hitting something with your hand repeatedly. You get that impact. It's the impact. It's the force. It's potentially the vibration. It's the posture when the force is applied.
Interesting.
Definitely a recipe for a potential problem.
Yeah. Then we have. So Shane, I think, is mentioning to someone else, Cyril, you could try a cortisone shot. I got one, and it helped until it went away. So he's, let me find Cyril's original comment. There it is. Cyril, thanks for joining us. Cyril McKinnon says, I have frozen shoulder. Is there any recommendation from your experience? And I'm not familiar with that is. Can you explain what that is?
Frozen shoulder is basically when there's a lot of inflammation in the capsule that surrounds the bones that make up a joint. Okay. So in addition to tendons and ligaments, tendons attach muscles to bone, ligaments attach bone to bone, and then in certain joints there's like a picture like almost saran wrap type holding the bones together. So that capsule, it's called the joint capsule. And so when that capsule gets inflamed from repetitive motion or that sort of thing, what can happen is that it significantly limits your mobility. And so what they call frozen shoulder is called adhesive capsulitis because you get, I'm not sure if it's scar tissue buildup, so don't quote me on that one, but from the inflammation, essentially your range of motion is so limited that you almost can't move your shoulder. Wow. Yeah, and the term adhesive capsulitis leads me to believe that there is some sort of adhesion maybe between the connective tissues that are also in the area. I'm certainly not an expert on frozen shoulder, but that's my understanding of what it is.
Interesting, thank you. And let's see if I can pronounce his name properly. Bizwajit Karmakar, I believe, I hope I'm not butchering that too much, has a great question. How does a good quality throne help to get rid of such a problem? I presume he's referring to a back follow.
Yeah, because I'm not sure that a throne would help with anything other than maybe back or hip problems, possibly knee problems, depending. That's probably more of an adjustment issue. To be honest, I don't know the answer to that, other than to say, because, I've seen a lot of drummers who use the thrones that have the backrest, and there's a lot of different seat styles, like the saddle seat or the moto seat and all that kind of thing. So I haven't looked into those and why some might be better than others. But I will say that if you are sitting on a throne that is wobbly because it's not well made, or it's old and it's just lost its capabilities, your muscles are fighting against that instability. And so they're activating to keep you upright, and they're probably activating more than they would need to, because they're trying to counterbalance all that wobbly movement so that you do what you need to do with your arms and your feet. So I would say that throne quality in terms of stability is really important. Whether you use what type of seat you use, or whether there's a backrest or what have you, I can't say anything about that right now, other than I think it's a matter of personal preference and what's comfortable. But that's, something possibly that we might look at down the road as well.
Cool. And just my personal take on the backrest, and I'm not criticizing it or saying people shouldn't use it, but I personally have never understood it. I can't imagine sitting at a drum. Whoops. Hey, come back. I can't imagine sitting at a drum kit on a throne and having something against my back. I personally don't sit the same way consistent enough for that to ever do anything. I move and, I swing and sway, and I don't know, personally I've never got that. I sat at a kit once that had it, and it was like, man, it's this thing in the way. Like some of the newer cars, the headrest points forward, like that sort of intrusion to me. But let's look at another question. Ashish in Nepal says, any good suggestion on food, nutrition, or exercises for upper limbs, shoulder maybe, or for wrist? I know sticking is a great workout for it, but besides sticking, he just wants to know what some good recommendations might be. And I don't know when he put that question up. Sorry, Ashish. I know you covered a little bit about the stretching and some different dynamic stretching and motion stuff with a bit of resistance, and yoga and Pilates as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I'm not a nutritionist, so I can't say much about that, but I'm in my personal life, I'm vegetarian. I try to eat a lot of whole foods, not of non-processed foods. So, but that's not a professional opinion. So see a nutritionist if you want to know something about that.
Great.
So yeah, I mean, we did kind of cover the exercises a little bit in general terms, but I think the important thing, like if it's being used as a warm up, is just that it's supposed to be gentle, it's supposed to be progressive. So you're starting light and slow, and gradually, as your body's warming up, you can start moving faster, maybe hitting a little harder and things like that, until you feel prepared to do the full-blown playing. The same way at the gym, you would, walk on the treadmill for 10 minutes before you, go to do your actual weightlifting. And even before you do the weightlifting, you're going to do a little bit of active range of motion stretches to get those joints ready to adopt the postures that it needs to. So it's no different for drumming. You would want to do the same kinds of things. As far as specific exercises go for strengthening, say, wrist muscles and things like that, there's lots of good resources online that don't have to be drumming specific. And if you look up, there's all kinds of physio websites and things like that, and even strength and conditioning websites that can give you tips on exercises for strengthening your wrists, strengthening your shoulders, things like that. Particularly those smaller postural muscles, to help you maintain the proper position, to allow the bigger muscle groups to activate fully and exert the force that they're designed for.
Great, thanks. And I just noticed that Pete Lockett is watching. And Pete, I don't know if you're still watching. If you are, I'd like you to chime in with this. When the other gentleman mentioned that he has carpal tunnel mainly from hand drumming, I thought of Pete Lockett, and I wondered if you interviewed him at the NAMM show. Do you recall?
No, I didn't interview Pete.
Okay, darn. Pete, if you're still watching, let us know if you've had any sort of related injuries from the millions of minutes of hand drumming that you've done over your career. And thanks for joining us. Let's see, some other people here. Hey, Dan Vizina's watching, Gianluca Mancini, all kinds of other wonderful drummers that I follow and that follow Drum Talk TV. That's always nice to see. Let's see if we have any new questions. Going back to what Cyril's comment was, he says the Mayo Clinic says up to 3 years. Gadzooks, I really hope it's not that long. I started a year ago. Okay, cool. And that's in regard to the frozen shoulder, if I remember correctly. And he says, much thanks to you. Let's see. Bear with me here. Okay, so far no new questions. Now, I want you to help me put it out there that if people are anywhere near you or willing to drive 5-6 hours or whatever, they can be part of your study that involves the motion capture technology, right?
Absolutely. Yep, definitely. We are still actively recruiting participants. So our goal was to get to 20 drummers, and we're at 7 now. So we are more. So yeah, if you live near, the Windsor, Detroit area, or if you're going to be in that area and
on tour or something.
Yeah, and can spare, let's say 2 hours, including, just time. It's not usually that long, usually about an hour and a half. But if you've got the time and you want to be part of scientific research on drummers, then yeah, they can get in touch with me, or I think on my website, the call for participants is posted, or on my Facebook page, sorry. And I think you guys, I'm not sure if you shared it yet, but we had talked about sharing it in certain areas.
Yeah.
My student Jessica, and also another student, my grad student Dylan, they're handling recruitment too. So any of the three of us you can get in touch with, and we'll try to set something up.
Great. And what was I going to say? Oh, Windsor is not quite the Globe, Arizona of Canada, but for those who aren't familiar with it, kind of give, I know it's over the border from Detroit, but kind of give other people a proximity of where it's at, in case they are on tour and playing in a nearby city or something.
Yeah, so, I mean, in the U.S., Detroit's the closest city. So if you're coming to Detroit, we are literally right across the border. In fact, my office is almost at Customs.
Oh, wow.
Where our building is. So, you get off the bridge, make a left turn, and that's where my building is.
Okay.
So it's really easy to get to.
And the criteria to participate, they don't have to be professional drummers, but how do they have to have any level of frequency of playing or anything like that?
Yes. So you have to be, there's a few things. You have to be over the age of 18, so 18 or older. You have to play a minimum of 5 hours a week. And you have to have been doing that we don't have a set amount of time, but essentially you have to be able to play the songs that we're asking for to a certain level of proficiency.
What are the songs?
They are pop songs. They are Justin Timberlake's "Can't Stop the Feelin'," one rock song, "Sweet Child of Mine" by Guns N' Roses, and now you've put me on the spot and I'm drawing a blank. What's the third one?
Well, you're in your office, don't you have the list?
No. Oh my goodness, why can't I think of the third one? Oh, Walk the Moon's Shut Up and Dance.
Oh, okay.
So those are the three. And we kind of chose those based on, the typical sort of cover band, wedding band drummer, and also just drummers of a certain level of proficiency would either already know the song or be able to pick it up pretty quickly and play it on a 4-piece kit. And then the fourth song can be anything you want, including your own original music. Cool. To play along to. We tell people to pick something that is in the vein of the type of music that they would normally play. So you come and play those 4 songs. The criteria, being able to play those, being 18 or older, and then you also have to have been injury-free for the last year. So not just drumming injury, but if you slipped and fell and broke your wrist, in the last 12 months, you're not eligible. So any kind of injury, and we're talking about the kind of injury where you would have had to seek medical attention or take time off work or school or something like that for this injury. But that's basically it. Yeah.
And from the motion capture sessions, are you posting any of that? Are you able to share any of that online and kind of show someone's I don't know what it's called when you have the motion capture version of the human doing it, but are you posting any of that and kind of explaining what's going on?
Yeah, I've posted a little bit, and actually one of my participants posted some of his own stuff as well. So I shared that too. So yeah, I definitely will be posting. I haven't in the last little while because I've been busy with other stuff in the lab, but yeah, we can definitely post some videos so people can see what the avatar looks like. My student Jessica presented the proposal of her project at a conference recently, so I think I'm pretty sure I posted a copy of the poster itself, which has not only the picture of the avatar, but also some of the data that we got. So I can try to remember to post that on my page again as well, so people can see it. But yeah, some of that's up there, so they can see what it is, like what the motion capture looks like, and what the digital, or what the actual equipment looks like, and what the digital representation looks like.
That's cool. And for how long will that continue? Until you complete with 20 drummers, or a certain date, whichever comes first?
Probably won't take it much further beyond July-ish, somewhere in there. Okay. The reason being, my undergrad student is graduating this year.
There's that, yeah.
So, students do that. So she's moving on.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah. And so I know she's going to stick around for a bit in the summer and help out. But and then my grad student will be here, but he has another project that he's getting started with as well. So we're going to try to wrap this up, get as many as we can between now and, say, the end of summer, and then go from there.
Awesome. Nadia, thank you so much for joining us again and filling us in on the NAMM show experience and this new study that you're doing. And folks, if you want to get on board, you can message Nadia through her official Facebook page, through her website. What is the website again, just so we have it right?
So I don't have the messenger option enabled on Facebook.
Okay.
Some pretty odd messages. But there is a send email function, and my email address is my last name, Azar, then the number 5 at uwindsor.ca. So you can email me, and we can get in touch that way. I do have a website through the university, but it's kind of like a long, something simple like, drummerlab.com or something like that. So you can find it through the University of Windsor's website. But probably the easiest place to find me is either on Facebook or Instagram. And I often do comment, engage with people in the comments even. So, we can get in touch that way too.
Yeah, and if you're watching this on the archive, be sure to go ahead and put some questions out there. Nadia and myself will be kind of